Welcome to the PLDC assignment. For third year software engineering students of SLIIT are assigned to create a useful video for the subject Programming Language and Design Concepts, which is an investigation on open source software and how the language used to design the software is supported to the software. Our group selected the G-Typist software as our open source software, and we investigated how the programming language is fit to the software. C is the language that used to implement the Gtypist. Gtypist is an interactive typing tutor for the Unix system. Let's see how the Gtypist software works. When the user starts to work with the Gtypist software, first should choose a lesson and the user given an instruction saying how to work with the tutor. Then the user is given a string to type. Mistaken letters are not shown, and at the end of the typing, display row speed and adjusted speed. According to the topic we are given, we need to analyze the code that we selected. So mainly we are going to evaluate the language that implemented, and in the next part of the video we will be discussing how the source code adhere and violate the programming language principles. There are three main criteria to evaluate a language. First one is readability. To decide the readability of the software, we are going to analyze the code on four factors: simplicity, orthogonality, control structures, data types and structures. Second one is writability. Writability is considering on factors simplicity, orthogonality, support for abstraction and expressivity. The next criteria is reliability, and it is evaluating on two factors: exception handling and type checking. First of all, we'll talk about the readability of the software. There, we can see the operators that are overloading. Equal sign is used for equality as well as for comparison. Use plus sign for both concatenation and for addition. Asterisk sign is used for pointers and for multiplication. Use same operator for many operations and make the readers of the code confused. This decreases the readability. Feature multiplicity is an important feature that we could find when analyzing the software. There are many ways to do the same operation. For example, we can perform addition in many ways. And subtraction also can perform in different ways. So, the above factors reduce the simplicity of code and it may lead to the less readability. When talking about the orthogonality, programs return records instead of arrays. could identify that program code heavily used point arithmetics, which leads to less orthogonality. Most of the values of functions are passed by reference. In pass by reference method, it passes the actual value instead of sending a copy of the value. Malloc functions were used to implement the code where that decrease orthogonality and reduce the readability. So according to the factors we talk, they decrease orthogonality and it leads to less readability. Next, we have to talk about the control structures that use for implementation. The language C has been allowed the programmers of the G-Typist software to use various types of control structures such as for loops, do-while loops, cases, for each loops, hash indexes. Allowing various kinds of data structures, the developers could design a software which increased the readability. Since there are many data structures to use, developers could avoid data structures that make the code complex, such as goto statements. This program uses many data types such as bool, float, int, char, double, long. C has been allowed for casting as well. A special data type bool has been used for comparisons, which returns true or false as the values. Since G-Typist developers use language like C and it allows many data types, developers could increase the readability. The second criteria we are going to discuss is writability. As we discussed before, two factors that we evaluate the writability are simplicity and orthogonality. We have already discussed about the simplicity and orthogonality of the software. So, according to the things we have discussed, we can say, since the software uses C as the language, it has reduced the orthogonality and the simplicity of the code. This has been led to the less writability of the program. The next fact is support for abstraction. The language C has allowed programmers to adhere the abstraction by allowing subprograms. This program uses many functions which increase the repeatability that make the programmer to write code easily without wasting time. When talking about expressivity, the code does not contain lot of lines of codes. Since the software compares the letters that the user type, it does not need many lines of code, and C has supported it well. For example, consider the task printing the given text on the screen. You can see the program has implemented the task using a small number of lines of codes. When considering abstraction and expressivity, we can say both of these factors increase the writability of the program by using the language C. The last criteria we are going to talk about is reliability. What we can say about the reliability of the software? To talk about the reliability, we are going to discuss two main factors. First one is exception handling. Actually, C does not have exception handling mechanism, but G-Typist software is not a critical system. Therefore, G-Typist does not require high reliability mechanisms. So we can say the programmers had used the most appropriate language when talking about the reliability. The second factor is type check-in, and C allows the type check-in, which increases the reliability of the software. Now you know why the implementers of the Gtypist software had used C as their programming language according to the language evaluation. Let's evaluate the Gtypist code according to the programming language principles. For the evaluation, we have chosen some programming language principles. They are abstraction principle, defense in depth principle, information hiding principle, labeling programming principle, orthogonality principle, preservation of information hiding principle, regularity principle, 0-1 infinity principle, security principle, structured programming principle, and syntactic consistency principle. How the Gtypist software adhere or violates the programming language principles? How it is suitable to use C as the programming language for the Gtypists? Let's discover. The first programming language principle we are going to talk about is abstraction principle. The definition for the abstraction principle is avoid requiring something to be stated more than once, factor out of the recurring pattern. Let's see how the Gtypist complies the abstraction principle. The implementation consists of many number of functions. This has been increased the reusability of the code, and this adheres to the abstraction principle. Without implementing the code again and again, we could call the function to perform the task. This programming principle is defense in depth principle, which says if an error gets through one line of defense, then it should be caught by next line of defense. This programming principle mainly focusing on the security features provided by the programming languages. Though C does not have the facility of exception handling mechanism, the implementer had been used his own error handling mechanism.